Channeling is a word that we use when we are receiving our intuitive messages. So when we're putting ourselves into an intentional, relaxed state and then just asking, we can ask our higher self, what do I need to know about this situation? We can ask our hearts, what do you truly desire? You can ask your body, what does my body think or feel about this situation compared to that situation? And you receive messages. That's what channeling is, in many different ways. It might be a body feeling, like your body gets super tight and anxious when something might not be the best thing for you. And your body feels relaxed and open, or like even uplifted if it's something that's going to be more aligned with you and your health and well-being.
Hello and welcome to Curious Ones podcast by Yandara. I'm Yael Ginzburg, the host of the podcast, a yoga and meditation teacher and philosophy lover. Each week you will hear eye-opening interviews with the different teachers of the Yandara Yoga Institute, located in beautiful Baja, Mexico, along with other teachers that pass through here. This life-changing knowledge shared through authentic, heartfelt communication will help you live a happier, more fulfilled, and connected life. Let's dive in. I'm so excited to have our guest today, Allison Eaton. Allison is an international teacher of yoga, Reiki, and meditation, training teachers for many, many years. She is an inspired Reiki healer, which she performs alongside readings of the Akashic records. She is also a wonderful devotional singer and musician, and just a whole being of light. So welcome to the podcast, Allison.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's my honor. And I would love to start with a tuning in that you suggested to just tune us into this vibration of receptivity. So
awesome.
The stage is yours.
Oh, okay. So I thought we'd start with a moment of centering in the two of us together, and also everyone else who's listening at home can take this opportunity to center in with us, and just coming to a nice comfortable seat, closing down the eyes, feeling the body, and take a nice deep breath in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Again, feeling your body. Breathe in and breathe out. We can all now just center in at the center of our chest, home of our heart chakras, just feeling for any sensation in the center of the chest. Nice. And perhaps sensing or feeling or even visualizing a light inside your heart. This is a light that is in each of our hearts. And then just see that light growing and expanding in your body, reaching out to your hands and your feet, your head. So your whole body is enveloped in this beautiful, loving light of your hearts. And the light extends beyond your body to all beings everywhere for the highest good. Taking a nice deep breath in and out. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Perfect way to start.
I feel better.
Yes, me too, definitely. It makes such a difference just taking a moment to close your eyes and focus on the breath and focus on the heart.
Yes.
Wow, even what was that, like 2 minutes? It was meaningful.
Yeah, it can be so simple. Just a point of presence is right here, always waiting for us.
At the heart.
Doesn't take long, just a few breaths there.
Thank you for that reminder.
You're so welcome.
Beautiful. So Allison, I would love to start with Reiki and this whole subject, this practice, philosophy, this work, because I'm very, very curious about it. And I must admit, I don't know much.
Awesome. Yeah.
So if you could please kind of say what your experience is with Reiki.
Awesome. I'd love to. So Reiki is love. Reiki is unconditional love. It's that feeling we felt in our heart chakras as we centered in its presence, its consciousness. And it's also a Japanese word. If you split the word into two, we have rei and we have ki. And rei means universal and ki means life force energy. So this is universal life force energy, or spiritually guided life force energy, meaning the energy comes from our higher self. And this energy is the same that we learn in yoga, which is prana, life force. We might hear it as chi also in other traditions. Same energy. However, we're using this energy and we're using it in such a way that it's guided by the universe, guided by the higher self. Very, very simple technique. So Reiki is, in a nutshell, it's a relaxation technique. And what it does is it's when we apply Reiki to someone or to ourselves, it relaxes our body system into a parasympathetic nervous system response. The brain waves start to slow down and you enter a sort of lucid meditative state called theta brainwaves. And it's in this state that your body can do all kinds of healing and restoration on a physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional level.
And you say, excuse me to interrupt, but when you say apply Reiki to somebody, what do you mean?
So a Reiki session looks something like this. So the person is lying down, fully clothed on a massage table, and the practitioner will have their hands either just lightly touching the skin, or maybe a few inches to maybe even a couple feet in the field. That's the aura that surrounds us. And the Reiki practitioner simply acts and intends to be a channel for the universal life force energy to flow through them. And then when it flows through them, it goes to that person's body, mind, spirit. And then from there, their higher self takes it away and does the work for them. Their body does the work for them. So it's not like I'm doing anything to them. It's like the energy combined with their own body's intuition, their own body's intelligence is actually doing the healing work for them. So yeah, it's really beautiful that way. It makes it really non-invasive. It makes it really non-egoic. It's not, the practitioners trying to heal someone or move anything around in their body. It's really the energy itself does the healing, accompanied with their own body's intelligence. And when someone has a Reiki treatment, most people get very, very relaxed. They feel very calm and at peace. Some people will have temperature changes or pressure changes in their body. Some people will have colors or visions. Some people will be visited by past loved ones. It's all over the board and different for everybody. But we can always know and guarantee that Reiki is born of love. It's a very unconditionally loving and compassionate energy. And it's always giving the receiver what they need. And it's never too much and it's never too little. It's always right on point, again, because their own body, mind, spirit is guiding it for them. And it's such a beautiful practice. It's also something very magical and mystical at the same time. And it just, I know I've been practicing this for about 11, going on 12 years now, and it still blows my mind away, like every time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first encounter with Reiki?
I do. I was facilitating a yoga teacher training here at Yandara, and I was offering a child's pose assist to a Catholic priest in one of the trainings, doing a demonstration for the students. And when he came out of child's pose, he turned to me and he's like, "Wow, you have really healing hands." And in that moment, I was just like, I was kind of like awestruck, and something kind of came to me like, oh, you're right. This is something I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be using healing energy, using my hands. It just kind of like an intuitive download came through really strongly.
Wow.
And as soon as I had that kind of realization that, wow, I'm supposed to be incorporating this somehow into yoga and, because I was really interested in chakras already and teaching about the chakras. And I was really, really interested in energy to begin with. Teachers started coming into my life, and it works like that when someone first starts just expressing that desire to learn a bit more about subtle energy and life force, even if it's just in their own minds, then like attracts like, and a teacher kind of shows up. And that's kind of how it happened for me. Teachers showed up, and then I went to find teachers as well. And it all happened really quickly for me. I just, did all my levels really quickly, started doing sessions really, soon after my training. And then soon after that, started teaching it. And that was, 12 years ago. And
wow.
Still enjoying that ride today and incorporating it in with the yoga and basically everything I do, even my own personal life. I bless my food with Reiki. I put myself to sleep, hands on my body like this, and just asking Reiki to flow, and it just calms me and centers me and helps me to just move into that sleep state so easily. And
amazing. So we can perform Reiki on ourselves?
We absolutely can. We can give it to our own bodies for healing. We can send it to the future for, like, let's say you have a podcast interview coming up or some kind of job interview coming up and you're a little nervous and you need to have some good energy there. You can send it to the future. You can send it to your past. So anything, like when you fell off your bike when you're 5 years old and it was traumatic and you needed to have some healing because it's still affecting you today. You just won't get on a bike or something. You can send it to your past too. And it starts to help us see how like time is kind of lucid itself. And that's, time is a marker for experience, but maybe perhaps not as solid as we might think it is.
So I'm like in awe a little bit of what you said now. And you're definitely talking about concepts that are a little bit out there. So
for sure.
How was it for you in your experience to, because I know that what helps me believe things is through experience. So
yes,
what experiences have you gone through that made you really believe in this power?
Yes, I believe that even for people who are, super open to the energy and believe in it, there still will be some doubts because this is how our Western mind thinks, right? We weren't born and raised to consider that energy is real. And so it's so normal for people to be doubtful or have skeptical thoughts. Totally okay. What I find really helps is when people have the experience of a Reiki treatment and then something clicks and they have the experience of what it actually does to them, or they have the experience of Reiki training where they see that it's 100% possible for them to give Reiki to others and to help others heal. So every training that I offer with Reiki, people will leave there having done a full Reiki session on someone else and receiving a full Reiki session so that they have that applied experience and confidence, and there's nothing their mind can say that didn't happen, But in the beginning, before you have the session, it can be really hard to understand, and there could be more doubt and skepticism for sure.
So it's best just to try it. Just
try it out, yeah. If it's calling you, if you're feeling guided toward it, there's something about you, there's something that's there that means that you're supposed to give it a go. Yeah.
So what would you use Reiki healing for?
We can use it for so many things. We can use it for, let's say someone is feeling sick or has an injury. Reiki can help to boost the immune system and get their system back on board. It can help to regenerate the tissues. Their body's already going to heal themselves, obviously, but the Reiki will give them a bit of a boost to do it maybe a little quicker or a little deeper. We can use it for releasing anxiety, calming the mind, which is so important these days, mental health and wellness and well-being. We can use it for meditation purposes. In fact, One of the main benefits my students say to me is after they've learned Reiki, now they can get into meditation where they weren't able to before. And this isn't everybody, some people can get into meditation obviously without Reiki, but it did help to enhance their meditative experiences, getting them into it quicker and allowing them to stay in that present state longer. So enhancing meditation abilities for sure. Having experiences of feeling at one with people on a really palpable level, connecting with that universal life force energy on a really palpable level. It can balance chakras. We can bless our food. Cats love Reiki.
Really?
Yes. We have a cat here. I don't know if they can see, but there's a little kitty cat on the floor. Cats are natural Reiki masters. All animals love Reiki. Babies love Reiki. So we can use it in a way to love our animals and our children and to calm them when there's fear. And
beautiful.
Many, many applications.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I love that you mentioned, of course, this is working with energy. And for me, that was one of the defining moments of my life when I realized that there is an energetic world that you can't see or feel or, study, more or less. But that was really, I would say, like a big moment of awakening in my life.
It's huge when we start to study energy or have an energetic experience. It kind of blows everything out of the water.
Yes.
The mind has been constructed to believe in a certain way. And so that can be really, really big, beautiful awakening.
Yeah. In a way, it was even very calming for me because it kind of answered all these things that seemed unanswerable.
Yes. And I find that it's sometimes for people, it's like a returning home to what they already knew intuitively.
Exactly.
And maybe you like how you felt when you were a child, a little more open to the unseen.
Beautiful. You mentioned that it's coming from an intuitive knowing. And I think that's a really, really big part of being a healer and a Reiki practitioner.
Absolutely.
Could you talk a little bit about how you've cultivated your relationship with intuition, with your intuition?
Sure. Yes. Intuition is something that we all have. We are all born with intuition. And it's something that we get better at understanding and believing in ourselves and these intuitive hits that we get. And honestly, Reiki really helped me to open my intuitive abilities. Reiki is a completely intuitive practice. Like when you're receiving a training, the teacher will give you 10 to 12 different hand placements to put on someone's body for a Reiki session. But really what Reiki is very intuitive. So when you're connected to somebody else's energy field, you're going to receive a message. And when you're in a Reiki session, your intuition automatically heightens because your consciousness is lifted automatically. Your frequency is lifted. And so what happens is you get a message saying, go to the feet. I don't know why, but I'm just going to go to the feet. And then, you have experiences where they come off the client comes off the massage table and they're like, wow, that felt so good when you were at my feet. So you have all these confirming experiences of your intuition and validation of your intuition. So that really, really helped me evolve my intuition. Also there's a lot of practices we can do. There's skills that we can learn to help us develop our intuition as well.
Really?
It's something that's here in all of us. And it's just like when a child is learning to touch things or learning to move and crawl. There's things there's skills that we can learn that we can do, but just weren't really shown to us when we were children because it wasn't taught to our parents also. So for example, if you want to learn how to receive messages by hearing, we can simply start by, doing exercises of physical hearing. What are all the sounds around you that you hear? What are the most obvious sounds you hear? What are the most subtle sounds that you hear? And you start to fine tune and train that intuitive hearing sense called clairaudience. And then, in a relaxed kind of channeling state, you start to hear the voice of your higher self coming through.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the voice of your soul, or you might say the voice of our heart. Our heart's wisdom will speak to us. That's one of my main intuitive abilities, is clairaudience, is listening and hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So my heart might say, hey, you're going to feel very joyful if you walk this way in life. Or if it might say, hey, your class really, could use this today. It can be applied for yourself or for the people that you're serving. The same thing with clairvoyance, and that means clear seeing, practicing visualization techniques. So really grounded and practical skills that we can apply to develop what's already here.
Yeah. I love that, because it's really going deeper into something that's already part of our experience, of course, the hearing, the seeing.
Yes.
And also kind of, in the world, we call it a gut feeling. But
gut feeling, yes, absolutely.
And then going deeper into that and developing it by noticing what's actually happening.
Exactly.
Which we don't usually do.
Exactly. It's just putting into practice the observation.
So really fine-tuning this sensitivity, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the more relaxed we can be and the more calm our nervous system, the more the messages just kind of flood in. So putting ourselves in more relaxed, calming states, which yoga will do, Reiki will do, meditation will do, taking those 3 deep breaths does. All that helps to facilitate intuition.
Yeah. You mentioned channeling.
Yes.
Could you speak about that? Yeah. What do you mean?
So channeling is a word that we use when we are receiving our intuitive messages. So when we're putting ourselves into an intentional, relaxed state and then just asking, we can ask our higher self, what do I need to know about this situation? We can ask our hearts, what do you truly desire? You can ask your body, well, what does my body think or feel about this situation compared to that situation? And you receive messages. That's what channeling is, in many different ways. It might be a body feeling, like your body gets super tight and anxious when something might not be the best thing for you. And your body feels relaxed and open, or like even uplifted if it's something that's going to be more aligned with you and your health and well-being.
Yeah. What do you do when you're not clear about what you're getting?
So sometimes we just have to wait. Sometimes it's not time to get the full answer yet, because there's still some experiences that we might need to have before we can really know the full answer. Yeah. And then if on the other end, if it is time to receive or to know what that message is, maybe a little more relaxation, put on some calm music, do some yin yoga or restorative yoga, those really calming, subtle yogas first. And then that might help put you into a state of being more receptive and more clarity.
Thanks. That's a good tip.
Yeah. And just practice. The more we approach it or anything, the more we practice, the easier it is to understand. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so curious about something else that you do, which is Akashic Records readings. So if you could please maybe explain what that is, if that's possible, and then explain also how you perform the readings for other people.
Sure. So Akashic Records is so fun. It's such a beautiful one-on-one experience with someone who's coming into a session and looking for some guidance or some clarity in their lives. And so the Akashic Records is a kind of fancy name for the quantum fields, or the higher self's perspective, the soul's perspective. So, for example, when we're talking about channeling, when we open up the Akashic Records, we're going to receive or channel information that comes from the client's higher self. And so there's just this kind of intuitive ability that occurs when we intend to open up the Akashic realm. And it comes with a beautiful higher vibrational light when we open up that realm. So yes, we're receiving messages and guidance from the higher self that pertain to their life situation. But they're also receiving a healing from this beautiful light, I can call it, a very beautiful frequency that comes through. And so some people like to describe the Akashic records as a record of your soul's experience, your soul's journey across all lifetimes. And it is that too. And it can be that. And what I am most interested when I read the Akashic records for someone is what is the best information for their highest good that they could hear right now, that pertains to this situation that they're wanting to know more of. So, people are in transition a lot. When they come into these sessions, what does this mean? Where am I going? And, what are the practices that I can do to help myself? Various questions come through. What's my soul purpose is another big question that comes through. So,
do you get answers to those questions?
Yes.
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 Oh my goodness.
Yes. And in the Akashic records is also something that every human can tap into as well. Every human being can also read as well. And again, it's something that you have to set a really solid intention for. And there's also practices, some grounding and calming and clearing exercises we do for our energy fields before we read somebody's records, and practice. In the beginning, just like anything, there's going to be doubts. Same thing with Reiki. There's going to be, or even like yoga. I don't know if I can touch my toes, but you just have to keep going and keep at it, even when there's, those voices in your head. And then it all starts to get more clear and starts to make more sense. And you have more confidence in yourself.
It's so true, because when you were saying that, I was thinking you have to have a firm belief that you are going to receive the messages that you're asking for.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be some sort of trust that what you're hearing, like to allow yourself to hear what comes up.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. That's a big part of it. That's the big turning point once you start actually allowing yourself to hear your messages, whether they're for yourself or somebody else you're working with. And then, and trusting them, and again, that comes with experience and practice and just doing them over and over again. You start to learn what is the voice and what is the frequency of my higher self versus what is the voice and the frequency of, say, my critical self. Two completely different voices or energies or frequencies or reactions in your body. Yeah. Completely different. So
different feelings.
Different feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, what am I hearing, or what I'm hearing? How is it feeling in my body? And I guess, is that how you can tell the difference?
Yes. Yes. You'll have a visceral body experience, and which can be different for each person when you're channeling from your higher self. And then you'll know when your body starts to feel that way, or for me, sometimes it's seeing like a light going off right here. You know that you're connecting with your higher self because that's how it is for you. And for somebody else, it might feel a little differently, but they know that's their landmark.
Yeah. So it's different for every person.
Yes.
But would you say that every person could do it, or do you have to have certain abilities or something like that?
I believe every person has the ability, just like Reiki. This is we are born intuitive beings, and we just need training in it. That's all. We just need experience in it to see what that is, and then training in it and practice with it.
Wow.
So it's not just the shamans and the healers and the gurus and that can tap into your intuitive gifts. Especially nowadays where consciousness is evolving for everyone on the planet right now at a very high, rapid rate. And so many more people are automatically just downloading things and, or they're getting extra sensitive or very empathic, we might call that word, to other people's feelings. So I think it's really good to have some sort of understanding or training to understand what's going on in your being, and how to ground yourself, and how to know what's yours and what's not yours, and some training around your sensitivities, your gifts, I'll say. Oh, like for example, doing a Reiki training is going to teach you how to protect your energy. It's going to teach you how to not take on somebody else's energy. When we are channeling Reiki for somebody else, it lifts our own aura into a very high frequency. So it doesn't allow for lower vibrational energies to kind of come in and become us, if that makes sense.
Affect us.
Yeah, affect us, yes. And so what it will do is the higher frequency that we are attuning to when we give Reiki will actually affect the other person in a positive way. And so you're actually more protected from taking on someone's energy when you're channeling Reiki or when you're doing a Reiki session than you are just walking down a crowded street or being at a huge party. And what it really comes down to is just being present and coming back to your breath, coming back to your body and your heart when you're in those crowded situations that help you to come back to your own energy field.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me, I feel like I can relate a lot to, I haven't had a Reiki session with you. I will definitely have one for sure. And Akashic Records reading. But it reminds me of an experience I had actually after hypnosis.
Yes.
So I felt very connected, and I felt like I was channeling in the end because I was just talking and talking and talking. I couldn't stop talking and saying like all these things that I know to be true.
Yes.
You know, it came as like a knowing and a clarity.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And the interesting part is that I felt throughout the whole session, I felt the resistance of my mind.
Of course, yes.
I felt like every breath I had to recenter. I had to really breathe deeply and focus on my breath, because every breath my mind was trying to take me out of that state. And I had to really use the breath to connect to that place. So it reminded me of that, what you just said.
Absolutely. Yeah. Coming back home to our body, back to our breath.
Yeah.
Helps to move us from our mind to our heart, from our mind to the intuition, mind to body, you might say, where we can allow for those sort of unusual experiences to just flow, just be okay.
Because the mind resists it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the mind doesn't understand it, right? Yeah. There's a part of our mind that does. It's a left brain, right brain type thing, intellect brain, intuitive brain. The intuitive side of our brain understands, but the intellect has probably been more developed in most Western cultures.
Right. Yeah. Right. With the school system and everything. And just the culture, actually.
Yes.
Definitely. Okay. I would love to... Well, first I'll ask you, what has been a meaningful experience that you've had using your access to your own Akashic records?
Oh, yes. I feel that, each time I open up my own records, I will receive information, for example, root causes to some of my own suffering that I would have never, ever thought of. And it's just, it goes so deep into your psyche and into your being of that's, even like our standard intuition might not even give us. So it goes very, very deep into our souls.
Would you say subconscious or
subconscious?
No? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Yes. Goes very, very deep into that. So I'm able to have revelations come to me that help me to heal that I would have never, ever thought of before. It helps us to make those connections. Okay, you felt this because of that or because of that. And then sometimes you ask a question and then they're like, no, this isn't even the question you need to ask. It's like, let's go over here and explore this first.
Really?
And then opens up a whole new doorway of understanding. And then, it had that light that comes through the Akashic records helps to clear the energy that's ready to be cleared around that issue also. So it's just really phenomenal, really life-changing. It's taken everything to a whole nother level, my healing practice into a whole nother level. So it will pinpoint and guide us to exactly the area of our life that we need to work on, even if we thought we were supposed to be over here. It's like, no, right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Would you say, because you know how in life we have these lessons that keep showing up, may they be from our karma or our current, our childhood, our experiences, but we all have certain lessons that
That's right.
we need to learn. And what I have found is that it's usually these lessons repeat themselves. It takes me more than once to learn a lesson. Would you say that Reiki can kind of like do a shortcut on that learning in a way?
I would say yes. Yes. Because Reiki is an energy that will work at the root causes as well of our lessons and our imbalances. It will take us leaps further than I would say without, honestly. This is what I've seen in people's spiritual developments and their emotional developments and their psyche developments. That yes, it can speed up the process. What has been one of these lessons that you've been working on throughout your life? To trust myself. Because I feel and know that I was intuitive very young. And, I remember people saying things like, oh, you're just crazy. You're just, wild, or, that's just so different, And so you start to, at a young age, not believing in the things that you're receiving and the messages you're receiving. And so coming full circle, I've had to kind of retrain myself to first listen to my intuition and what's coming through, and then second, to follow it. So there's a difference, then there's a whole nother avenue there, is you have to follow what you hear and what you see and what you feel in your body and know to be true for yourself.
Yeah, to trust yourself enough to actually follow up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been thinking about that so much. It's so interesting that you brought that up, because I've been thinking about this in terms of sometimes I think that we in the spiritual community talk about finding our worth and loving ourselves. And then I was thinking about it in the last few days, that is it loving ourselves, or is it trusting ourselves? Trusting that we love ourselves, trusting that we are worthy, trusting that what comes up is actually worthy of listening to and following up on.
Yeah, I think the three go together. The more self-love I've been able to implement in my life, the more I'm able to trust myself. And the more trust that I have in myself, the more I end up having more self-love and compassion. So I think they all speak to the same. Yeah.
Do you have practices that you use to develop this trust with yourself?
So I feel like there's so many. One, in Reiki, when I'm working with someone, I really, really listen to what their body is telling me. I listen for any kind of clues or information that I might be receiving from the field. And then sharing that information with them and them having that validate, that's one way I've developed trust in myself. Hi, Billy.
Billy's here.
And there's some practical things that I've done in the past where, I honestly, where I keep a little diary or a notebook of my intuitions that come. And then sometimes it's just like checking off my clairvoyance or my clairaudience that day. And sometimes it's just writing down the experience that I've had. So documenting experiences. And I'll tell you what, the experiences that have helped me to trust the most are the ones where I didn't listen. The consequences were quite harsh. And so I think those stronger experiences where maybe I've been hurt by not trusting my intuition, those are the ones that really start making me
think
twice next time I get a similar download.
And you want to listen to it.
And I will listen this time.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you said that, because really documenting it is so helpful, because it takes it from being this kind of concept that's floating around in our consciousness and puts it into reality.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you can go back to it and like really monitor, like kind of like a checkup, you know, to see, okay, that's what I received. This is what actually happened in reality. Did I listen? Did I not listen? What was the consequence? Was it a consequence that I wanted to have or not? I love that. So let's talk practically. You write about the things that you hear or
feel. Yep. How your body responds to a certain situation. Or when you think about a situation, how does my body respond? Again, does it contract? Does it feel open and relaxed? Does it feel uplifting? Does it feel dark? You know, writing that experience down and then checking later on too, when you followed which path you followed. Was that the best for you or not? Or did that follow your intuition or not?
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that it's really about checking in with what you feel.
It's a constant check-in with what you feel.
Yeah.
Every day, like almost every moment, checking in with self, how you're feeling, and getting to understand and having this relationship with yourself and your body and your feelings.
Yeah. So we kind of get these messages through our body.
Yes.
Very much so. It's so interesting because a lot of times in the spiritual world, you hear you are not your body.
Right.
And yet that's the way the universe connects it with us. And
this is our channel. This is our antenna. This is the receiver.
It's the antenna. I love that.
This is everything. Yes. The cells in our body are picking up the information, and the water in our body is carrying that information and interacting with every system in our body. Everything in our physical nature is connected and affected by our energetic nature.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. We want to come into the body.
Yeah. Beautiful. So it is us.
It is us. It is us.
Good. That makes more sense to me, actually.
Yeah.
I love that. Hey, I'm quickly interrupting the episode to extend an invitation. If you are interested in deepening into any of the subjects we talk about on the podcast, we offer many different experiences on our beautiful grounds here in Baja, Mexico. From 9-day modules such as sound healing and yoga nidra to breath and meditation, as well as 200 or 300-hour yoga teacher trainings and many different shorter retreats. Check out our website, Yandara.com, to see all the information about the different experiences. Let's get back to the episode. There is a subject that you mentioned you would love to talk about, and I'm super curious about it. So let's move on to that now, which is dimensions of consciousness. So I'll let you take it over.
Awesome. Okay. So a dimension of consciousness is another name for like a state of being or a state of mind. It's not necessarily a physical location that we travel to. It's more of a state of mind or a vibrational destination that I might say we travel to, a frequency, a feeling, right? And it's all dependent, the dimension that we are operating on all depends on the frequency of our thoughts. If we're having higher frequency thoughts of, connection, love, and harmony for all, or lower frequency thoughts of fear and competition, for example, might put us in a different dimension. And as I start to talk about them, I want to just really emphasize that all the dimensions are equal. There's no hierarchy. They're all born of the divine. They're all born of love, and that there's something to learn in every single dimension that we can attune to lower and higher dimensions.
Thank you. I think that was an important thing to say.
Yeah.
So
it's all love. It's all growing. We're all just growing together.
Yeah.
And so there are various dimensions of consciousness existing simultaneously at the same time. So in this now moment, there are hundreds of dimensions that we can attune ourselves to. And today I'm going to refer to 8. And 8 dimensions of consciousness.
Are there more than that?
There are more dimensions of consciousness, yes. And these 8 that I'm speaking of are kind of nice little map that we humans kind of generally like to use to help us understand where we might be when we're having this type of thought, or where we might be when we're having this type of experience, and to give us also empowerment to know that we can shift which dimension we operate on according to the way we shift our thoughts. And doing things that lift our vibration can bring us into a different dimension. So we actually have control over these. We can attune to different dimensions as we want to.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear.
Yeah. And so I'll start with the first dimension. The first dimension is, you can think about it as the dimension or the consciousness of elements, the consciousness of a rock, for example. So before I go into that, just knowing that everything has energy and everything puts off a living vibration. Everything, even things we don't think are alive with pulsating energy.
Right.
And so the energy and the consciousness of, for say, the Earth's elements, let's say a rock, is the energy and the consciousness of the first dimension. A rock exists. It doesn't understand that anything else exists around it. It doesn't understand that, oh, here's a human next to me, or here's a tree next to me. It's called single point reference or single point consciousness. And this was the first consciousness that was kind of developed when Source decided to birth itself into form. It created a singular point of consciousness, and where everything is sharing the same unified field. So this unified field of consciousness, single point, there's no sense of duality in it. It's also said that's where our DNA was formed as well, in this first consciousness reality. And it's also said that this is the dimension of the Earth's energy. So you know how we have energy, we have chakras, we have energy channels called nadis in our beings. We have auras. Well, so does the Earth too. So we're tapping into the crystalline matrix of the Earth and her story that she has to share when we tap into a first dimension consciousness. The wisdom of our ancestors lives here. The whispers of their teachings live in this consciousness that we can tap into. And this first dimension is connected to the first chakra. And when I'm talking about chakras, I'm talking about this kind of 13th dimensional chakra system, where the first chakra is the core of the Earth. So elemental nature, the consciousness of, oxygen, the consciousness of metal, the consciousness of, again, a rock, for example, and the consciousness of the elements itself. Exactly. So that would be our first dimension that we can tune into. You just go outside and stare at a rock and try to feel what it's feeling or what it's thinking. Or it doesn't have a whole lot going on in there, right? But it does exist as a living entity.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it doesn't respond to you, right? Once something starts responding to you, we're moving into the second dimension of consciousness. And the second dimension of consciousness is similar to animals. So cats, dogs, horses, any animal, and plants. So there is kind of the second dimension, it introduces a second point. It's like where Source split itself into Source itself and Source's opposite, so that it can understand its first self better, which is a little bit confusing to understand, but we need these polarities to bounce off each other to understand our existence better.
Yeah.
So that's where duality was first created. So a positive and negative force was created. A yin and a yang was created. Ida and Pingala, when we talk about the nadis in yoga, were created. A masculine and feminine force. So these opposites that kind of push and pull each other, creating waves of energy and frequency that create the rest of the universe. And so the beginning of space and time is created in that second dimension as well. There's me, and then there's not me. There's now and not now. So time and space was the beginning, the inklings of that was created in the beginning of duality, so that we could better understand ourselves. And so consciousness can better understand itself.
Wow.
So wild, isn't it?
Fascinating.
Wild. I know. I love learning about this stuff.
Yeah.
And sharing.
Consciousness wants to better understand itself.
Yes.
It doesn't understand itself fully.
Always evolving and understanding itself more. Always evolving. Eternally evolving.
Yeah.
So it just
I
goes
love
on
that.
forever.
Consciousness is always evolving.
Yes.
That's just beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful?
It is.
Yeah.
Wow. So nothing is set, like, because I find this, I have this kind of need in myself to always evolve, and to hear that it's just like this, that's how nature itself works, is just beautiful. I don't have words to.
No end point. There's no end point, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my very first yoga class that I took long ago, when my teacher said that yoga is a never-ending journey. This is a lifelong journey here. There's no end point. There's no goals, right? It just took all the pressure off. Okay.
I can't even tell you, like, I feel like I'm on the verge of tears right now of this understanding that this whole place that we're in, this whole galaxy, the whole universe is just in its always evolving, always expanding, always developing into something else. There is no end point. There is no goal actually to where we want to be, destination. It's just always this kind of flow and movement.
Yes. It's just dropping into that flow and movement, letting it carry us is like where we can release a lot of suffering and a lot of
goodness. I don't know why that hit me so hard. That's beautiful, incredible. Yeah. Thank you.
Gosh, you're welcome. For sure. So then we have the third dimension of consciousness. And the third dimension of consciousness is very human. It's the consciousness of human beings that are operating at a kind of a root, sacral, and solar plexus chakra level. So there's a lot of fear in the human mindset of a third dimensional reality when they're perceiving the world with fear, with competition, ego, greed. Again, there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong, better or worse, because there's a lot to learn in this third dimension, right? A lot of lessons for our evolution. We just keep growing.
Yeah.
And so it's a place of strong duality. It's where Source then split it into three, right? It was one unity field in the first dimension, split into two in the second, and then introducing a third point in the third dimension, which creates past, present, and future. And once that was kind of creating in consciousness, all these different moods and feelings and desires and hopes and fears started being created in consciousness. And they're there to help us evolve, of course. And so third dimension is a place where as a collective, we are now moving from the third dimension into fourth dimension as a collective. There are many of human beings already in the fourth dimension. And I'll skip on over to the fourth dimension now, which is really the beginning of our awakening as human beings and the beginning of our healing journey. It's where a lot of yogis reside, where seekers reside. Anyone who's interested in doing the inner work has now shifted themselves into more of a fourth dimensional reality versus the third dimensional reality that's still kind of holding on to this you, me, right, wrong, black, white, and holding on to power and, greed and things like that. And so when you're in the fourth dimension, your heart starts to open, the heart chakra is starting to awaken, and we just automatically start doing a lot of healing work. It is such a healing dimension that, it's easy to flip-flop too in this dimension. When we're in the fourth dimensional realm, we feel one day fully connected to our divine self, and we know there's this kind of unification between all of us, this oneness, and then the next day we're just in our fear again, we're in our egos again. And that can be moment to moment. We talked about before, it can be moment to moment. Our frequency shifts, and so our reality and the way we perceive the world shifts. Once we get into the fifth dimension, the fifth dimensional state of consciousness for humans is a state of consistent and extended oneness. So no longer are we affected by our emotional waves. We're not attached to identity anymore. We're not attached to or reacting to our emotional nature, you can say. And this is the realm that I like to think that the saints and the gurus have walked on this earth, have lived, and some on this planet still live in this consciousness today.
So they still have these emotions come up, but they're not reactive to them.
Yes, exactly. They're still human beings, so they will still have emotions, but they don't react, right? They don't drop into that lower vibration of fear, ego, third consciousness. Yes. They stay in the fifth. So when you're in the fourth dimension, you kind of, you have these revelations like, yes, we are all one. And then the next year, like, oh my God, what did I just do? Oh my God,
So would you say it's like unstable, the fourth one?
It's very, very unstable. Yes.
Okay.
And, but a beautiful, beautiful learning space to be in. And, I would say that, yoga brings us into this fourth dimensional state where all of a sudden you just start healing stuff automatically, right? And just, you start opening these doors of your own history, your own background, and start healing. And then you start feeling more connected to all that is. And so you're just kind of in that space. And then once you pull out into that fifth dimension, and now the fifth dimension can also be accessed through meditation and Reiki. And
I was going to ask, Reiki and Akashic records
absolutely
is through the fifth dimension?
Fifth and higher, fourth, fifth and higher, I'd say. And so once we get out of the fifth dimension, it's kind of like this is more of a meditative kind of lucid experience that we have when we dream. When we're in an altered state of reality, people will have a sixth dimensional or higher experience through meditation, through channeling, Reiki, Akashic records. Certainly have access. And also when we die, we can access these realms. And these are higher states of consciousness where we start to kind of, for example, in the sixth dimension, it's a very galactic dimension where we start to kind of feel our galactic nature and that there's more to this universe than what we think is happening. So there's more beings, there's more species beyond the human, beyond plants and animals.
I'm sure there is.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, right? It's like, it's just intuitively know that.
We can't be the only ones.
Right, exactly. And so in the sixth dimension, we start becoming more aware of that and accessing that information, and perhaps even receiving information from beings from other dimensions, other star galaxies and other planets, beings of light that have a little something to share with us, some knowledge to share with us, because all beings have gone through these dimensional evolutionary stages. So there are beings that are of galactic nature that started in third dimension, and as a collective, they evolved themselves in the fourth and then to fifth over eons and eons of years, which is really quick in their years, actually, but a bleep in time and space and consciousness for them. But they've evolved into a sixth or dimensional or higher as a collective. So us earthlings, us humans, we're going to do that too. We're just, we've been in the third for a long, long time. And now many are in the fourth. And we're still needing to bring everyone has to go together. The whole collective has to go together. We can't just go out there and expect to stay there. And all of us as a group have to move together. So that's what we're doing.
When you say beings of galactic nature,
I'm talking about ETs. I'm talking about different kinds of light beings and guides that, exist on other planets outside of Earth, different star dimensions, constellations, and dimensions, physical and non-physical. So non-physical dimensions exist as well, where beings can operate from, and it's all part of the psychic mind that they
whoa,
they live in, and it gets super complex. I don't understand all of it fully, but exactly. And so it's like receiving a message from your higher self. Well, we can receive that from an intergalactic being of light too. which, some of us have experienced here at various trainings. And I know some of you out there listening have had these experiences here as well.
Yeah, I've heard a few alien stories.
It's kind of an open portal here. But, these experiences will only come to us if we're feeling safe and if we're just kind of open to it.
Yeah, I don't want to scare people.
Exactly. And neither do these beings of light want to scare anybody, right? There's no ego involved in this. And so they're only going to be, available to us if we're okay with it.
So you're talking about guides.
Guides, yes.
That exist in different planes.
Yes.
And kind of talk to us, right?
Yes. Very much so. So we have these guides. And then when we go up into the 7th dimension, there's a whole other set of guides that live there. And then in the 8th dimension as well. So the higher our frequency gets, the more non-physical the guides will be. So the non-physical might be what you considered angelic guides or orbs of light or guides that stay really, really, really close to source. They're non-physical beings. And they have a different feeling as well, different frequency as well. So when you start channeling different guides, again, your body is your antenna, you'll feel differently if you're connecting to this type of guide or that type of guide, and you'll have a reference point to understand who the heck you're talking to.
Oh my goodness. So you can feel which guide you're talking to or like what their dimension is?
Yes. Yeah, they all have their own frequency. And then if there's a visual that comes into play as well, you'll get a visual of it as well. And usually that's in the mind's eye that will share what type of guide it is as well. Yeah, so there's like so much going on in the world that, we may not perceive at all times, but it's all about depending like how we're perceiving the world and our own reality and our own truth will align us with a certain dimension or dimensional being as well.
Yeah. How do you rely on this connection to these guides?
I mean, I've come to fully rely on them because humans, we are flawed. It's just how we are, and we're all learning and growing. But when I really am broken down and need help, I will call out to my guides. I will call out to my higher self. I will call out to the highest beings of light that are here to support me, and that will lift my frequency out of my suffering state and bring solutions to me. And I've done it so many times that I've learned to like full on trust that. It does take some remembering though. So, like when we're in a suffering state in our minds, for example, it can be hard to remember to call upon our heart, to call upon our higher self, to check in, to center in. So we have to remember. And sometimes the suffering gets so strong that you just cry out for help. I'm sure a lot of people have done that, right? Help me, just help. And then that's what opens everything up because these beings need permission to come in and assist us.
Really?
Yes, because we have what's called free will as human beings, and the free will to decide when we want to heal, when we don't want to heal, free will to receive, information or messages that would help us to grow. If we just have to say, yes, I want to grow. Yes, I want to heal. Yes, I need some help. Help me, please.
Yes.
And then you're in, everything opens up.
So can you, I love maybe becoming practical about it. Yeah. How does that look for you?
Okay. So for me, meditation, I might sit myself down in meditation. I might be lying down in my bed, also like upon awakening or before bed, because that's when your mind is your brain frequency and your thoughts are super slow. You're much slower consciousness, and that's when we're more relaxed, and that's when we can access it even better.
Great.
So it's either me sitting like in my living room, meditating with the intention to open up to either my Akashic field or a being of light or my higher self. And usually there's a little prayer that I'll use or an invocation that I'll use to open up the Akashic records.
Could you say it?
It's something that I normally read. We were in my training, we were taught to read it. But for example, if I'm going to open up to Reiki, for example, I will say, "Dear Reiki guides of light and all beings of love and light, angels and archangels of love, my highest self, my divine self, my love self, I ask for your assistance with," and then I will state my intention. Or state what I want to work with. Or it might be asking to assist me in this healing for so-and-so. And that calls in all the higher energies. For the Akashic Records, it's a specific prayer. I call upon the forces of light. It's very similar, but it's very, very Akashic Records specific. And it's calling upon different masters, teachers, and loved ones to assist in receiving information that would pertain to my life's current situation that I'm asking for help with. It has certainly been a help, just like a full on, like I'm on my knees and crying and I just need help with this. I don't know how to get myself out of this. And then you just relax and you breathe and you just wait for that feeling to come through. And it's always there. Yeah. It's always there when we ask. And then it might be simply intentionally, I now intend to connect with, for example, my Arcturian family, which is a star family, an ET family. Okay.
I don't know if I can handle that now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like very, very specific. Okay. I want to now connect with Kuan Yin, for example, or I want to connect with Durga Ma, for example. And we do that in so many ways. We do that when we sing to Durga Ma or a goddess or a god in the yogic kirtan worlds. Oh, we're invoking prayers.
So we're kind of asking these goddesses, these forces, these energetic beings to come into our experience.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that.
And they're just, always calling upon beings of love and light. And they're just so, it's like a mother's touch, it's just like a helping friend's hand or, someone who's going to care about your highest good and give you, advice in a really loving way. So our higher self and our higher guides will always speak to us in love. And if it's critical, it's not our higher self. It's not our guides. That is our ego. So we start to learn to understand how it feels when we're opening in these ways.
Yeah. Would you say that our higher self and our guides are different?
Yes. They might speak along the same levels of your higher self or share a certain same frequency, but we all have our own higher self, our own higher soul. And then every being has their own higher self, their own higher soul, which is, our higher self is connected to source consciousness, to love, but the ways it comes through, how it's shared, the frequencies are different.
How would you kind of define what higher self is for your experience?
Yeah, I would define higher self as like the most wise aspects of ourselves, the most mature aspects of ourselves, the eternal aspects of ourselves. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Our soul nature.
Beautiful. I feel like it's kind of our mission to reside in that place.
Yes.
Is that like fifth dimension?
All spiritual teachers have said, know thyself, right?
Yes,
know thyself.
Yes.
And that means know your higher self. Know that you are connected to divine source consciousness, that we all come from divine source consciousness. And that we absolutely have that ability to bring that consciousness here into this earthly human existence.
Beautiful. Did we talk about eighth dimension?
So the eighth dimension is pure consciousness itself, and it is source consciousness. It's where we merge our higher self, our individual higher self, you might say, with the greater higher self, with source itself. Source is who we all are at the beginning, all of us together is source energy. And then when source or our own individual soul decides to birth itself into form to learn lots of lessons on earth or wherever we're going to go, it creates a form, it creates a structure, but we all return back to source when we die, right? So it can be looked at as a dimension that we travel to when we die, when we leave this physical realm, I'll say, when we transition. Okay, so death isn't just like an endpoint, right? So when we transition, and it also can be experienced through different therapies like Reiki and meditation, theta therapies, I like to say, anything that will get you into a theta brain state. Like yoga nidra, for example, or sound healing. We can have these glimpses of our source nature and feel so connected to oneness and source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say that, like, I mean, okay, you said before that there's more than eight dimensions, because I was thinking like, okay, so what, we die and we arrive at this final destination? No.
Well, your soul will decide where to go. So when this is kind of how I've been explained to, and how I kind of feel it is when we pass over, our soul is going to guide us to some place, some dimension, some frequency. It might go straight to source. It might hang out in a 6th-dimensional field somewhere, a 7th-dimensional field somewhere. It might pop right back into Earth and right back into that 3rd-dimensional existence. But the soul knows. And I don't know if we're supposed to know that right now as human beings, because then it's like, there's nothing else to learn while we're here. So it can travel to any dimension. And, I'll get super weird for a second again. We might pop over to a different star constellation and live there for a while. Many of us came from different constellations first and incarnated on Earth here to bring certain vibrations, higher frequency vibrations, to help with the evolution of the Earth's dimensional consciousness. So a lot of yogis have had these different incarnations, and just all kinds of humans as well. So where we go is really up for the soul to decide, and it will know. And then there's different scales too, just like there's different musical scales. We can actually relate an 8th-dimensional scale to a 13th-dimensional scale. If you look at one octave in a keyboard, for example, if you're only looking at the white keys, you've got 8 keys in that scale. If you're looking at the white and black keys together, and there's 13 different dimensions in that scale. So when I'm speaking of an 8th dimension, somebody else might say that's a 13th dimension, just depending on the scale that you are interpreting, really. Yeah.
And are these dimensions for just our Earth?
No, because the intergalactic beings are all living on different dimensions too. Okay. So, for example, if we can get super weird again, please. So, for example, the Palladian family of star beings. This is a race that comes from the constellation the Pleiades, and different stars and different planets within that constellation. And some Palladian families are operating on a 4th-dimensional existence, just like us human beings on a 4th dimension. Some are in 5th, some are in 6th, some are in 7th, some are 8th, some are 9th and higher. So even other types of beings can exist as a collective on one dimension or another. And so it does pertain to otherworldly beings as well as human beings on Earth as well. Wow. It's just so mind-blowing. It's so fascinating. I just love this stuff. I love learning about this stuff and just sharing it. And it just blows my mind,
Yes, definitely. Definitely mind blown. I need to kind of land.
We'll land and digest. Yeah. So same thing for everybody out there. That kind of blew your mind. Just, drink lots of water and, get into your body, go for a walk.
Yeah. I would love to ask about how do you know this stuff? Where is this information coming from?
So I am just like a seeker, an infinite seeker, and so I have watched so many interviews of people, of seers, of visionaries, of people who channel full on channel different intergalactic beings, documentaries, my own experiences channeling different intergalactic beings, and then having them validated by these different interviews and documentaries that I love.
Wow.
I love watching. One of my favorite things to watch is Gaia TV. Honestly, they've got so many cool things on there to learn.
Wow.
Yeah, and you learn a lot about this through Reiki as well, because I think a lot of Reiki practitioners and healers tend to extend themselves out into these realms as well. Just a natural thing that happens.
Yeah.
Although I will say, to channel Reiki, you do not have to have any of these kind of abilities at all, because it is full on the energies doing the healing. You don't have to know any kind of psychic information about anything for it to work.
Or believe in it.
Or to believe in it even. Exactly. You don't even have to believe in it for it to work.
Yeah.
Just gotta do it.
Amazing.
And it'll work.
Wow. It's incredible. Okay, I'm gonna take my time to digest all of this because it's definitely out there.
I need time to digest all that just came through too, for sure.
But thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
That's beautiful.
And in the end, everything is love. So I just want to end with that note, is that everything is born of love, and that's coming into our hearts and becoming more loving, conscious human beings is the game here, right?
Yeah.
And so all these otherworldly experiences and these mind-blowing experiences are fun and everything, but really it's about bringing that consciousness back home to this physical body and helping the people on this physical planet while we're here.
So on point. That was exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I close every episode with the closing curiosity questions. The first one being, what is something you've changed your mind about? I mean, there's a lot that we spoke about that could be.
Well, throughout my whole evolutionary journey, I've changed my mind about how I've believed in myself and what's possible in myself and in others as well. Coming from a place where you didn't think something was possible for yourself has changed into this is 100% possible.
I love that.
Yeah, and I've seen that many, many times in my life.
In your own experience and with others?
In my own experience with myself. And of course with others, seeing people walk into Reiki training the first day and saying, I don't know if I can do this. I'm skeptical and I have doubts. And then by the end of the day, they're like, oh my God, this is so real. And this is so beautiful.
Wow.
And so helpful.
Amazing. Yeah. What is something you didn't think you could do and you did?
I think everything I've ever accomplished, there was a part of me that didn't believe I could do it first. So even when I first became a yoga teacher, I didn't know that was possible. When I would watch my other yoga teachers do their beautifulness, I was like, wow, that's so awesome. I want to do that, but I don't know if I can, to everything I've done, from Reiki to Akashic records to channeling, I never thought that was possible, but it totally is. Yeah.
What gives you hope?
The empathic and compassionate nature that is innate in human beings. When you see a tragedy happen and everybody comes together to help, and people are there to support each other and love each other through. That shows me that this empathic, this compassionate nature is in all of us. And I trust that. And I have hope in that.
Beautiful. And what are you curious about right now?
I always want to learn more. I'm certainly curious about the levels of understanding and consciousness and awareness that we have ahead of us, and that I have ahead of me as an individual, and that we all have ahead of us as a group. And very, very curious how and where and why and how I can be a part of that. Always curious about that.
Incredible. Me too. Me too, definitely. Is there anything else that's important for you to share?
I think just important to remember that this consciousness is love. And if we ever get lost or confused along our path of our growing, our journey, our evolution, just always come back to the heart, always come back to love. And how can I love myself more in this situation? And how can I love this being more in this situation or this group or whatever you're thinking about?
Yes, definitely. How can people stay connected with you?
So you can stay connected with me, social media, Instagram and Facebook at Allison Claire Eaton. And my website is AllisonEaton.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I have a lot of things to think about and digest and re-listen to, but I'm so curious about it. And I appreciate your time with me.
Thanks so much for having me, Yael. It was just a joy to be with you.
Now, after this time to nurture your mind and your spirit, we invite you to take a moment to consider others. A kind wish might come to mind. Know that what we learn becomes more valuable when we apply it and share it with others. So share this episode on Instagram stories, tag Yandara and I, or share with a loved one so that more people can benefit from it. Our hope is that the search will lead you home to who you already are, to what was always there. We'll be back next week with more inspiration, honest conversation, and insight into the energetic world around us. Thank you for listening and watching.